I'm Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about things to know when you start dating your ex again.
Very important stuff.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of times you spend so much time in no contact, not hearing from your ex, that you get very anxious when you do start to spend time with your ex again. And there are a lot of little mistakes that you can make in that transition because especially you haven't done enough work on your anxiety, it will cause you to kind of spiral out of control and not know what to say, not know what to do, and you can really overwhelm things.
Right. And on your partner's end too, there are probably things that your partner did that was contributing to the dynamic of the relationship that didn't work out. And so we thought we would share this information with you just to prepare you for what's to come.
Absolutely, because it's scary when you start to spend time with your ex again. You don't know quite how to act anymore. It feels awkward, and a lot of times you kind of feel stuck in like breakup mode, and you got to get out of that. You can't continue to act like you're still in the breakup anymore.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to feel so unnatural. The chemistry is not going to go back to the way that it used to be.
Right. And exes can also be acting in ways that you don't expect. So sometimes an ex will come back and act like nothing ever happened.
That's a big one.
And this is the most confusing thing because you might have been in tears just a couple days before and then suddenly things work out and they expect the relationship to function as it normally did.
Yes, especially avoidance. They are notorious for coming back and trying to slide back into your life like nothing had ever happened.
And the reason is because a lot of people on the avoidant side of the spectrum, which on our channel we do talk about attachment styles a lot, they want to avoid the negative emotions that are tied to talking about the breakup. So it makes sense. Oh, that thing that happened, that breakup, let's just pretend that never happened.
Yeah.
It's how they deal with a lot of issues in their life if you really think about it.
Yeah, it's so true. But you're like thinking, all I thought we were supposed to do is talk about it.
Exactly. And it can also be a pride thing. You know, it does take a hit on your ego to get back with an ex because you're going back on a decision that you made. You are going back on something that you thought you did for yourself and are realizing, okay, maybe I did want to give that relationship a try. So there is a level of humility that it takes to repair that relationship. And especially when somebody is hurt, whether it's intentional or unintentional. So they know on some degree that it hurt you to end the relationship. And so they might want to forego that guilt or that feeling of guilt by just pretending that nothing ever happened.
Yeah, because they don't want to like reactivate things, make it worse, bring up that pain again. I mean, if you think about a wound physically where you've been hurt, if you touch it, you know, that whole area is sensitive. It's similar with emotional things with the breakup.
Exactly.
And so if they're trying to avoid that because they want to they missed you, they want to see you, they want to spend time with you and they have a good time, but we don't want to talk about those things because now we're going to fight, we're going to argue, it's going to hurt our connection.
Right.
And so it's going to kind of get them to be afraid. But at some point you do have to talk about those things, right? You can't just go through something major like a breakup and not deal with it or address it, because if you don't, how are things going to be repaired? And while the avoidant would probably in many cases not like to go that route, it's going to be in the best interest of you and the connection in the relationship that you do address it at some point.
Exactly, because it is ultimately an attachment wound.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the beginning, I think it's very important that you just try to focus on having a good time with that person. Just spending time with them here and there, having fun, reconnecting, kind of getting away from this breakup mentality mindset, like where it's that the dynamic is different, right? And into more of that how we were when we were together dating dynamic. That's what you're trying to reconnect, and that's the most important thing that I think you address. Of course, you're going to have to talk about those things, but do it a little bit at a time. Like one thing that you could do is ask open-ended questions. That, maybe something that's like, so, what made you think about repairing things with me? Or, little things that you might say that allows you both to get into a discussion, but not get overwhelmed by it.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this conversation can happen bits and pieces at a time if it needs to. And we also say to not bring it up right in the beginning, because what you want to do is restore that feeling of safety. For a lot of people, emotional conversations don't feel safe, especially in a breakup. It could have been a nasty breakup. There could have been insults thrown. There could have been a lot of pain, hurt, and anger. And so that's why in the beginning we want to keep things light and fun and playful, because playful feels safe. It's expressive. It's creative. It's imaginative. So you want to get into that mindset before you do start dealing with those serious issues. But it is a milestone that needs to be crossed if you are going to date your ex again.
Yeah, and of course you don't want to be like too playful, overwhelming at once. You know what I mean? Like, your ex is like, you slept with 4 of my friends, and they're like, 4. You didn't hear about the other 9.
Oh no!
So you got to be careful about being too playful.
Within reason.
Yeah. So you want to just like establish being around that person, and you're both kind of going to be a little bit timid there.
Right. Exactly. And another pointer as to having that conversation is using I statements can be really helpful.
I like I statements.
I like I statements too. And the reason we bring this up is because sometimes during talking about the breakup, it can turn into a blame game. Well, you did this and you ended the relationship and you said this to me, and that's not productive.
It's going to feel like an attack to them.
Right.
For both of you. Like if they said to you, well, you did this and you did that and you did this, then it's like you're going to kind of shut down. And vice versa if you do it to them. So, but if you come out with the approach of, I felt really hurt when you wouldn't even talk to me about what was bothering you. Yeah. I felt really hurt. That shifts it instead of, you wouldn't even talk to me.
Right.
But if you haven't done the work on yourself, you're not going to have the emotional self-control to do this. Trust me. That's why we have to tell you all the time, really do the work.
And really be aware as the conversation continues. Sometimes we can get on this slippery slope where the beginning is going great, we're using I statements, we're expressing empathy to our partner, and then the conversation prolongs to the point of frustration starts to come out. Anger starts to come out. Hurt starts to come out. What else you got in there?
Everything. It all comes leaking out like a giant gaping wound.
It does. So take your time.
But if you haven't worked on the anxiety, you're going to try and rush that.
Exactly. Another point that we want you to consider is that they may have had experiences with other people after you broke up.
And that hurts. That hurts.
It does. It is a reality. And we want to talk about it as plain as day and clear, just because we want to be realistic about things. And what we do see a lot is that when people do come back together, they find out, oh, my ex had been, sleeping around. They dated somebody else, let's say they dated multiple people. And there can be this sense of betrayal, even though it's not betrayal, even though the relationship had ended, their agreement with you had ended. So they had every right in the world to do whatever it is that they wanted during that breakup period. The feeling is still there because you were still attached to them. And it's really important that you make that distinction.
I know a lot of people will get very angry. Well, I'll never be with somebody if they've hooked up with somebody else. Hey, that's your right. If that's how you feel, so be it. But consider this. If you're single right now, the person that you date next might be hooking up with somebody right now. So what's the difference?
At this moment.
Yeah. As you're watching this video, the next person you date is hooking up with somebody in this very moment. So what's the difference if your ex hooked up with somebody after you, or the next person that you date is hooking up with somebody? Are you saying that you wouldn't date the next person because they're being intimate with somebody currently, or currently have a partner? Think about it. I mean, what's the difference?
Right.
I mean, it's up to you. It's your life. Like, I know there's a distinction there, but you really want to think about it. If you really love somebody and you want them in your life, would it really matter? I mean, many of you have dated other people since you broke up with your ex, depending upon when that was. Does that make your care for your ex any less? Does that change the dynamic if you were with other people, but they weren't? I mean, you got to really think about these things. I wouldn't be so rigid in you. Well, if there was somebody else, then I'm never going to date him again.
Right.
Yeah.
You really want to be mature about things. And these are some of the feelings that won't necessarily be helpful to bring up to your ex-partner, especially right away. If you are feeling jealous, if you are feeling resentful for whatever might have happened, I would take some time to process that for yourself. Is this something that needs to be shared right now? And also dig deeper into that. What insecurities are behind that?
Yeah. Yeah. What is the meaning behind that, right? What is the meaning of, okay, your partner was intimate with somebody after you? If they really thought the relationship wasn't going to work anymore for whatever reason, right? What if you had been a terrible partner for them and they'd been complaining to you for years to meet their needs or make changes and you didn't? And then they say, I can't deal with this anymore. And then they go off and date other people. Does it really matter if they come back and want to repair things with you and give it another chance? I mean, if you really love somebody, does it matter?
Right. And it's important that you process these emotions because they do come up. And we don't mean to shame that type of emotion. It's natural. It comes up. Jealousy is real.
Sure.
That sense of betrayal is real. But you do really need to process it, examine it, work through it yourself. Because if you don't, then it can come out in your relationship. And sometimes we see that where exes do get back together and are able to repair the relationship. But then one partner is still so upset from the events that happened when the relationship wasn't happening.
Yeah, I get it. I do. I get it. But if you live in a rigid place and live in this black and white world, you might give up on somebody that you really love because of what? Because they were intimate with somebody else? That's your right, but then you have to live with that.
We just want to warn you because we don't want you to be shocked to hear your ex be honest and truthful about the experiences that they had. They could have also had deep emotional connections during the breakup that they might feel like it's important to share with you. And we need you to be emotionally centered and prepared to hear those things. And you also need to accept those facts, accept the fact that they possibly did go out with other people if you want to continue.
Yeah. You can't get so emotional and upset that you just let your chance with this person again get ruined. And I've seen that happen. And sometimes people will talk about things like retroactive jealousy and stuff like that. And I get it. We're all human beings and we get emotional and we have different views on things. But, consider the alternative, not having this person in your life anymore.
Right. Exactly. So the other thing that can happen when you do reunite with an ex is that they've told friends and family about what happened. So we are once again telling you this so that you have a realistic view of what to expect moving forward, that you might have to face some of their family members and friends who might have questions for you about what happened.
Sure. Or they may have issues with your behavior.
Or judgments.
Things that you did. Yeah. That's part of it. We don't live in a bubble isolated.
Exactly. Some of you might have the tendency to over-explain yourself, to try to justify things. If you are approached by a family member or friend about the breakup, keep things brief, but also own up to whatever mistakes might have happened.
And certain people aren't really privy to all the information that happened too. You know what I mean? Not everybody needs to know everything.
Exactly.
Certain people may feel like they need to know more things than others. Like maybe you have parents or something like that are like making sure that, their child is not being mistreated or something like that. So people are going to be protective and you have to respect that as well. But, you were mentioning over-explaining things. And one of the things that popped in my head when you said that is how we might over-explain our dating history after the breakup,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I think it's important to kind of put some stuff out there, but you don't really need to get into details with things because it could be detrimental. Because people can be really still hurt and upset by things. So if your partner and you start to talk about it, you might say, look, we could, it's not that I don't want to talk about this. It may be a little uncomfortable, but I don't know if we should focus on this so much because, it might cause hurt feelings or we might get upset and, be focusing on the past when I'd rather be focusing on, our present and trying to repair things and having a future.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, especially on the conversation of how much is shared. And so your ex might start to share, okay, these were all of my experiences. You might have the tendency to mirror that, tit for tat. You don't want to do that. Of course, there is also a sexual health component to it.
Sure.
Let's say there was unprotected sex during that break, and now you and your ex are having unprotected sex again. Of course, these are conversations that need to be had for safety reasons, for health reasons. So we do encourage that. But yes, I do agree with minimum necessary.
Yeah. You don't want to over-explain. It could go bad.
Exactly. So we do have a couple questions to leave you with here. If you are repairing things with your ex, if you're in the process of reestablishing a relationship. And the first one is, what are you doing this time to make it better? So I'm sure this is a question that's in your mind, and I'm also sure this is a question in your ex's mind too. Yeah. What is going to be different about this relationship this time around?
It's a very valid question because if you don't really think about this or think this through, you're likely going to just make the same mistakes again.
Exactly. And you also want to examine what has changed in them. Many of you are watching the channel, learning about attachment, connecting the pieces from your childhood to your romantic relationships, and this is all great. We would love for your ex to also have been doing the same. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But it is important for you to think, is my partner at a similar level of health as I am?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we do outgrow our partner, and that's a reality too.
It happens, but maybe that's for the best, if you really outgrow them that much that you feel like it's not even healthy anymore.
And lastly, what are you doing to prevent another breakup from happening? This is important because a lot of times we might be focusing on the superficial issues that led to the breakup and ignore those deeper underlying issues that will come up over and over again with many different faces. And so this is why we emphasize attachment theory, attachment styles, childhood experiences, all of these things, because we really try to get at the core issue of what goes wrong in relationships.
Yeah, you have to really think things through, not just how do I get them back. You got to think about, okay, how can we get back together and have something healthy where it's a better connection than we've ever had. Communication is improving. We're respecting each other more. We're focusing on understanding our own needs, but also our partner's needs better. And that comes out a lot when you understanding attachment theory, that everybody loves differently. And the way that you want to be loved, in many cases, is the exact opposite of the way your partner wants to be loved, right? Because anxious people want a lot of closeness, and avoidant people want a lot of space, and somehow we wind up together, right? It's like a puzzle, right? So you have to understand that, just because somebody loves different from you, it doesn't mean it's any less valid or that your way is better. Because I think we kind of, this is the way it's supposed to be. No, it's not.
Right.
It is for you, but if they love it in a different way, understanding that and doing your best to give them that will make you both happy if you both can do that for each other.
Exactly. And also, I want you to be realistic about your situation moving forward. There will still be challenges. And actually, now that you do know more about attachment and you are growing personal development on all of this, you might be hyper aware of what's going on in your relationship. And so this is another part of it, another part of reuniting with your ex and what that relationship looks like. And so it's all part of the growth process. And, I do think that ultimately it does lead to healthier relationships to have these conversations and to work on yourself.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. But when you've really done the work, you'll have the emotional self-control not to push things or you've worked through your own sadness, hurt, anger, feeling jealous, feeling betrayed, and all the different emotions that come with that, because it's not easy to do. Because when you first met, you didn't have any of those things. You were just, oh my God, we have such a great connection. It was so much fun. It was so much this. And you'll have that again, but you're also going to have all these issues on top of it the second time around.
Yeah.
Right?
You're going to say, well, I never really noticed how avoidant you can be. I never really noticed how afraid of having these emotional conversations you can be. And then you might see the other side of it. I didn't realize how much you needed and how much I hadn't been there for you.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's all insightful stuff that leads you to better.
Absolutely. Let us know if you like this one. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
Yes, and I'm excited to talk with you.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.